Welcome to the Silver Screen Podcast. I'm Jared Boomer.
And I'm Katie Gainey West. This is a podcast about movies and pop culture.
And today we have another Pixar film to review. This new one is Elemental, directed by Peter Sohn, the latest in the Pixar film series. This is not a follow-up to anything. This is an original idea. Obviously, we did Lightyear last summer, which was not technically a sequel, but obviously in the Toy Story universe, so sort of a sequel, prequel, whatever you want to call it. So this is a new idea from Pixar, so excited to talk about this film today.
Indeed, and Jared, I am glad we saw it. I do have plenty of things to say about it. I can't believe Lightyear was a full year ago.
I know, this is kind of wild.
Oh, and I also remind me, please, when we get to the likes, dislikes, that I think there's something that relates with Lightyear in this movie that I figured people would comment on. So we'll see.
Also, I had a packed theater for this one. I know it hasn't been doing great at the box office, but yeah, I went Tuesday. It was discount day, and I went in the afternoon. I went Tuesday too. So that's probably why. In the evening. Okay.
There were quite a few kids there. Everybody was really well behaved again, which. Not like, I mean, I love kids, but I don't expect kids at a movie theater where you can't control who's coming in and stuff to be well behaved. And they were super well behaved, but it wasn't packed.
Okay. Yeah, mine was packed, and everybody, all the kids were well behaved in that one too. So obviously they got to get up often and like use the bathroom.
Go to the bathroom.
Stuff, but everybody was pretty quiet. Yeah. Nobody was like running around yelling or anything. So
yes.
Nice job, kids. Okay, we'll get to news here and then obviously into our review of Elemental. First thing is the big story with this submarine that was going to explore the Titanic. We found out earlier this afternoon that they believe the submarine basically exploded and then that all 5 people on board were killed. They thought maybe they would be able to find it. The oxygen, if it hadn't exploded, would have ran out this morning on the day that we're recording this, which is Thursday, June 22nd. So It's a very sad situation there. Kind of an odd situation, too. It seems like maybe they weren't totally prepared to go to the very bottom of the ocean. So it seems like maybe some bad things were bound to happen, unfortunately. Feel bad for those people and the people on board and all that stuff, but they also did pay a lot of money to do this experience, and it just seemed like some of the safety stuff was just overlooked significantly. So
I feel really opinionated on this, so I hope none of this comes across as rude or anything. The people who went, first of all, had a lot of money, so I'm not concerned with how much they paid, and also calling in the Navy and the Coast Guard and all these other things, they're not going to make those families pay for it. Like tax dollars are going to pay for it. Which I understand those services, that's what they're for. But it is ridiculous that people knowingly put themselves in a dangerous situation and then died, which is horrible. But what is freaky deaky to me, Jared, is do you remember that book? I think 2 episodes ago, I mentioned that I had just read that book by TJ Newman, and it was about a flight that had to land in water, and they were submerged, and they were running out of air. It was almost exactly the same situation, except in a plane, not a submarine. And they even talked about in the book how far below that they could go. Like the New York Times today and the Washington Post posted things on Instagram that was showing, it was actually a very cool video graphic if anybody's interested in that. And it shows where like the Titanic wreckage is. It shows where whales, usually how low they'll go. But it was a fascinating video. It's like a minute long. And there's a reason, first of all, we can't go that far. We don't really have the lung capacity, or our bodies can't handle it, but also like machinery and stuff that we have can't really handle it at this point. But the wreckage is found right by the Titanic, which I find extremely eerie. I also think maybe I thought about this a lot too, because I am so enamored by the Titanic and always have been by that story. But also, if I was offered to go see the Titanic, even as much as I'm obsessed with the story, I wouldn't. It's a gravesite. Secondly, the Titanic, we all know how that went down, right? So why would you then get in a boat or a ship or some kind of submarine to go attempt that again? I don't know. It just really bothers me. It's devastating what happened. I will say that. I'm just very sad for the families and for their loss. Yeah. But I think it was a completely avoidable disaster.
Yeah, I think it would be different if they were doing this for some scientific purpose or if it was like a research thing or they had like a noble cause that there was a reason they were going down to see the Titanic. Maybe they were trying to find more information or something, but this was
Right.
literally seemed like just a sightseeing trip to the Titanic, which like you said was not really necessary at all, and it seemed
Yeah.
like very unsafe in the first place. So yeah, sad, but also like you said, a lot of mixed feelings, a lot of uh,
Mm-hmm.
mixed emotions on how this kind of whole situation played out. So
Yeah. But rest in peace. I do hope the families are okay. That is extremely tragic. And one family lost a son and a father. So that's
yes, yep.
terrible.
Some other news is that The Flash is not doing great at the box office. Did win the opening weekend, but only made $55 million opening weekend, and has since made $144 million when you factor in the worldwide total. So that's not fantastic, especially since this movie probably cost $200 million to make, and then another couple $100 million to market and promote and all that.
Plus the
Um,
lawsuits.
so yeah, plus the Ezra Miller lawsuits and Warner Brothers like dealing with all that. So it hasn't done great. It might make its budget back, but it's not going to make a lot of money. I just don't think people were super interested in seeing this. One, because it's about a character that you don't know a ton about. It's not like a Batman movie or a Superman movie or something like that. And then also all the allegations with Ezra Miller and then with James Gunn taking over DC, there's probably people thinking, how much is this really going to matter in the whole scheme of the overall story, since this was already being worked on before he took over. I have heard Michael Keaton's good in it and that he basically saves
Mm-hmm.
the movie, which it makes sense given his track record. But I just think there are a lot of factors there that made it so people weren't really super interested in seeing this. And you have like Spider-Verse is still out right now, and Guardians is still in theaters too. So I feel like there's just a lot of superhero movies out at this current time.
Yeah. I also heard there was another cameo that because
Okay.
Arjun did go see it. That was fun.
Okay.
So I don't want to ruin that for people, but I will say it was another Batman. So
Okay.
that's what I can.
Good to know.
Um I just thought about this because I was very opposed to going to see it, but I would encourage people, if you're comfortable, if you do want to go see it, and you, because I know there's always going to be this delineation of, can you separate the art from the artist? In this case, I choose not to because I'm disturbed by the allegations. Um and the lack of like any kind of uh having to take credit, I guess, like for what they've done. um if you do go, I was going to say, see if possibly making a donation to either like a trans rights group or to, I don't know, I was trying like a sex trafficking group, or people who are recovering from like are survivors of rape, things like that. Maybe see about making a donation to them instead, or adding that into your price of your ticket and say, well, I'm going to pay $12 for this ticket, so I'll donate $20 to this organization. I just think that would be a nice way to kind of do something good, but also you can go support the movie.
Yeah, that's a good point. So, our next news item has to do with the Academy Awards. So, the Academy Awards is not for this upcoming Oscar cycle, but for the next one that'll start
Oh, thank
next
you
year.
for
So,
saying that.
this will
Got it.
begin with the Oscars that will be broadcast in 2025, but we'll start with the 2024 movies. Basically, right now, how it works is you only have to show your movie in a theater for like a week in one of the big cities. And a lot of the complaints with that have been the fact that that doesn't allow a ton of people to see your movie. Also, this is a common thing every year when we do Oscar stuff. I have people telling me, like, well, I can't, where do you even go see that? Or I haven't seen that anywhere. It's not in theaters near me or whatever. So that happens sometimes with the Best Picture nominees. So what they're going to do it is they're going to change this, and basically you will still have to have the 1 week theatrical release in one of the 6 big US cities. But then after you do that, you have to have a expanded theatrical run of a week in 10 of the top 50 US cities. And then you have to also show it in theaters before the Academy Awards happen. So you can't like do
Oh,
your theater run of those 2 or 3 weeks, after the award season. So
got it. That's clever. I mean,
mhm.
I think to me that seems fair. I don't know that I'm like triggered or upset by that rule.
No, I think it'll help. I think now,
Mm-hmm.
granted, Indianapolis and Dayton are not the
Yeah.
top 50 U.S. Well, Indianapolis might
I
be
was
a
going to
top
say
50 U.S.
Indianapolis
city.
might be one of them.
Yeah, so that might actually count. And like near you, probably Columbus or
Or
Cincinnati or something.
Cincinnati.
If
Mm-hmm.
you really wanted to go see something, it would be maybe an hour and a half drive away. So,
Yeah.
but again, this will start with the 2024 Oscar movies, and it will just help more people to see them in theaters. And then also, I think they're trying to help with the streaming stuff as well, like some of these streaming movies getting nominated that don't have big theatrical runs. Just trying to get some more movies in theaters so that it might be a little bit easier for people to see them, which in turn would probably make the Oscars more popular because more people will have seen the movies. So,
Right.
yeah, I think that's
Wow,
perfectly
that's
fine.
cool.
Yeah.
Thank you for keeping me abreast of the changes because, yeah, Jared had texted me. He always seems to know what's going on, but I hadn't been able to read the update or anything. So that's cool. I like that. And if nothing else, they're going to make more money too by opening
hmm
it up to more cities. That's just going to help their bottom line.
Also, that is just for Best Picture too, just for that category. So all the
Okay,
other
got it.
categories do not have to do that, but Best Picture, if you want to get your movie nominated in Best Picture, you will have to do that. So,
Got it. Cool.
Uh, and then the other news item we have is Barbieheimer. Barbie and Oppenheimer obviously coming out on the same day. We're about a month away from that in July. And I've heard a lot of people talk about the order to see these in, or if they're going to see them both on the same day. But you had some news about
Yeah.
Barbieheimer.
Oh, mainly, I was just going to say I had not yet heard the term Barbieheimer until this week, and I laughed so hard. I thought it was hilarious. And then I think, because, everybody's talking about what they're going to wear to these as well,
Mm-hmm.
especially Barbie. I have some fabulous pink heels that I think have to be worn. Like, I think they just have to be. But also, they have t-shirts. I definitely want to get one. And I was talking to our friends of the pod, Mandy and Brandon, about this because I think we're going to go together to these movies. We've been debating on seeing them on the same day. I think we're going to split it up. I think we're going to do one on a Friday, one on a Saturday.
Probably smart.
But I want to get one of these t-shirts. So you can get them on Etsy. I mean, there's places to order them, but they're half pink, half black. They say Barbieheimer, but Barbie, like the Barb part, is in like the Mattel Barbie logo that we all know. The Heimer part looks just kind of like dark and sad. And then I was trying to think what else. I think it has, some of them have like the date of release or whatever, but I was like, yeah, I would spring for a t-shirt for that. So I just thought it was very clever. I also think it's very clever marketing to have all these extra merch options and stuff for people. And I have definitely heard mixed feelings from people about which movie they're more excited about. I would argue that I think Oppenheimer is going to be the movie I enjoy more as
Mm-hmm.
far as like a storyline and what's going to stick with me longer. But obviously, huge fan of Greta Gerwig, obsessed with Barbie as a kid, love Pink, love Margot, love Ryan. So I think I'm going to enjoy both, but I personally would say I'm going to enjoy Oppenheimer more.
I feel like too, if I was seeing them both in the same day, I don't know
Mhm.
if you would follow this strategy. I would go Oppenheimer and then Barbie, and on a
That's
high
so
note. Yeah.
funny. That was another thing Mandy and Brandon and I were texting about because I said, "Oh, I think I'd rather close with the movie that maybe is what I think is going to be not superior. I don't mean it that way, just more thought provoking, which to me would be Oppenheimer."
Yeah.
But then
Yep.
they brought up a good point about, well, it's probably going to be depressing. Wouldn't you want to
Yeah.
end on a high note? But then the other thing to think about for people, I just love that there's so much strategy to this too. The other thing people want to think about is Oppenheimer is going to be like 3.5 hours,
Something like
three and a
that.
half.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and Bart, like you're committing to a 6 hour day. So that's another reason why I think realistically we're going to split it up into 2 days because we have jobs. So, and that
Smart.
weekend is extremely hectic. We have a lot of local theater things going on that weekend in Dayton too, obligations for those of us who are on boards and stuff for the theater. So realistically, I'm going to have to split it into 2 days to fulfill those other obligations.
So that will be exciting though, coming up in
Yeah.
just a little bit over a month. So also we do have a correction thanks to Mandy. We've upgraded her
Yes.
title. She's not intern anymore. She's research assistant, quickly climbing the ranks here at the Silver Screen Podcast. She was able to answer our Goodreads questions. She
Yes.
said it's a mean, not a mode. So we were wondering how Goodreads books get scores like 4.3, 4.1 when you can only rate it a full star. So but they use a mean there, and that's how they get that rating.
Yeah. I was
So
really impressed. I told her I was going to upgrade her title. Um, and she was so cute about it because she found it. I had lunch with her this week actually, and she had already figured it out. She texted me and said, "Don't let me forget to tell you at lunch." We forgot, and she ran to my car in the parking lot and was like, "I forgot to tell you about Goodreads." So then she had to explain it to me, and then I also had to review with her Mean, Median, and Mode to remember
Yep.
which was which and how they get it. But anyway, thank you, Mandy. She did not get a raise for the title bump,
Yeah.
but she is now a research
She did
assistant
get
for the
great.
podcast.
She got great scores on the performance review. So,
Yes,
but we did not
absolutely.
give her the raise. So,
Yeah, but
but
that's
yeah,
the answer to that question. If anyone was wondering.
great job, Mandy. So, on to recommendations now. I just have two things to recommend. First thing is the day we're recording this, second season of The Bear is out on Hulu. Starring Jeremy Allen White, of course. It's about a restaurant in Chicago. First season was very good. Kind of one of the surprise hits, I think. I think it was last year when the first season came out. Or maybe the year before. I can't remember. It kind of all runs together. But was kind of just came in off the radar. Nobody was really expecting it to be fantastic or anything, but it was really good. And second season's out now. Watch the first two episodes. First two episodes are good. The story's obviously going in a different direction this season, which I can appreciate. Seems like they know where they want to take it though, which is always good. Maybe unlike Ted Lasso a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Oh,
my
shade.
my other recommendation is I watched the movie The Fugitive this week, which came out in the 90s with Harrison Ford, but I have never seen this movie before. And I thought it was awesome. So if you don't know, Harrison Ford is like wrongly convicted of his wife's murder, and then he's on the run, and Tommy Lee Jones is playing a U.S. Marshal, and he's trying to catch him.
Did you see The
Um,
Fugitive?
yeah, yep, The
Oh my
Fugitive.
gosh, such a good movie.
Yeah,
I missed you saying the
okay.
title, and then I was like, oh, is he talking about The Fugitive? I love that movie.
Yeah, I had never seen it, so it's
Yeah,
great though. So
it's
yeah,
very
really,
good.
really good thriller. It's really well written, and like how Harrison Ford just kind of goes about everything. Everything makes sense in that movie,
Mm-hmm.
like the order in which he does stuff. So,
Yeah.
and Tommy Lee Jones obviously won an Oscar for his performance, but it was nominated for many, many Oscars at the I think 10 or 9 or 10 Oscars at the Academy Awards the year it came out. So
I'm
yeah,
glad you saw it.
if you have not watched it, check it out. Good action movie, and obviously Harrison Ford. We're going to talk about him more in a couple weeks with Indiana Jones. So
Yes, that was truly, again, 90s. Like when I was talking about the movie Heat, that was the sweet spot for Harrison Ford. And so many of those action movies, that was the best time, the 90s.
mhm.
Yeah, that movie's great. I really like a lot of Harrison's movies from the 90s. Anyway, awesome. Well, I was going to say, I'm excited. You reminded me today what I've been living for is, and Just Like That is back on Max, the spinoff, Sex and the City. Jared, I can't believe you didn't mark that on your calendar. We just talked about it.
I did
But
not.
I can't wait. I've been checking Instagram all day because Sarah Jessica Parker is posting about it. Speaking of, so my recommendations, because I haven't watched that yet, I read Andy Cohen's book. He and Sarah Jessica Parker are really good friends, have been for years. He wrote a book, The Daddy Diaries, The Year I Grew Up. Again, that's by Andy Cohen. It was way better than I expected it to be. I think it's had 6 weeks on the bestseller list already. And it was a lot more heartfelt and deep than I thought it was going to be. And he's written other books. This is the only one I've read, but he talks about his experience of adopting his two children. Well, he used a surrogate. They are his. But he has a little boy named Ben and a little girl named Lucy. And it was beautiful to hear about that experience. And it was lovely to hear about the surrogacy and his relationship with the surrogate and just how much his life has changed as a single man for almost 50 years before he had kids to now being a single father of two. And it was also kind of gut wrenching to read about his experience being a gay man who is a single dad and how all of those things affect him in ways we don't often hear that perspective of single fathers and gay men as well. But great, great story. And then the other one I read that was amazing, Tell Me Everything, a memoir by Minka Kelly. Spectacular. One of the best books I've read this year. It's one of the best memoirs I've read in the last few years. And that I hope that says something too, because I knew literally nothing about Minka Kelly. I knew she was on the show Friday Night Lights. I knew she dated Trevor Noah for a long time, but they broke up. And she's beautiful. That was it. That's all I knew. Fascinating story. She's had a fascinating life. They could definitely make a movie about it. And there's definitely things about I would say sexual assault, domestic violence, things like that, if that triggers you, that have occurred in her life. But just a fascinating story, beautifully written. So if anyone's looking for a good memoir, I read through it in like 24 hours. I actually read 3 books over the weekend because I could not put these books down. The last one, The 5-Star Weekend by Elin Hilderbrand. She's, of course, super popular, has a lot of beach reads and things. I didn't like this as much as her last few books, but it was really good. And the thing I wanted to point out, if this was a book of the month pick for me, but what I liked about this is this was not really focused on a love story at all. It was focused more on a relationship between a mother and her daughter, and then a woman in middle age that is bonding or revisiting friendships with people throughout her life. So she picks a friend, 5 friends from each decade of her life to come spend a weekend with her and host them. There is definitely an element of surprise and drama in the book, but it was beautifully done. It just wasn't my favorite of Elin's books that I've read. But again, that's the 5-Star Weekend. Shout out to our non-sponsors, book of the month, and just like that on Max. But I talk about both of those a lot. It's Sex and the City. I mean, I should guest star. And then lastly, Jared, Married at First Sight. There is season 13 has just been released on Netflix. I'm already almost done. I can't stop. I have had trouble sleeping this entire week, so I just stay up late into the night and watch Married at First Sight. Can't wait to see. I've already looked up what happens, so I'm not going to ruin it for anybody, but I ruined it for myself. But if anyone is into that show, season 13 just got released on Netflix.
Nice. Yeah, very interesting to watch that. So, Married at First
Indeed.
Sight. 90 Day Fiance, another very interesting one as well, if you love those like marriage shows. So, okay, we will talk about Elemental now, the new Pixar film released on June 16th, rated PG for thematic elements, some peril, and brief language. Runtime, hour and 43 minutes or hour and 49 minutes, depending on what you look at. Now, there is a short at the beginning of the movie with characters from Up, so maybe that's where the difference in the runtime is. I don't know. Maybe one's with the short and one's without. I don't know how long the short is exactly, but it's probably 6 or 7 minutes. So, IMDb is a 7.1 out of 10. Rotten Tomatoes critics 75%, audience 92% for this film. And box office wise, domestically, it's made $43 million. Worldwide, only $59 million. Not a super high opening for Pixar for this particular film. This one, the synopsis is it follows Ember and Wade in a city where fire, water, land, and air residents live together. And this one is directed by Peter Sohn. He's been with Pixar since 2000. Of course, as we've talked about before, Pixar likes to promote from within, bring people up through the ranks, and then get them to direct pictures or produce pictures. So he's been with them since 2000. He worked in the art and story departments, and he worked on WALL-E, Finding Nemo, and The Incredibles. He also does a lot of voice acting. He was in Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, and he was the voice of Old Socks in Lightyear. Socks, one of the best characters in a movie last year, I think, for sure. We would both agree. And then he also directed The Good Dinosaur, which I have actually not seen that Pixar movie, I don't think. That's one of the few that I have not checked out. So he directed that one, though. It's probably on Disney Plus if you want to watch it. He's got no upcoming projects listed yet. So we will. Oh, go ahead, Katie.
Oh, I was going to say, I have not seen The Good Dinosaur either, but a lot of people said great things about that film.
Okay. Yeah, I did hear when that came out. I did remember hearing like people liking it. So,
and my beloved Socks, still love him, and I still do have the stuffed animal that talks to me. Yes.
We will take a quick break here on the show and talk about the casts and our likes and dislikes for Elemental. And we're back here on the show talking about Elemental. This has relatively unknowns as far as voice actors go in the 2 lead roles, starting with Leah Lewis, who plays Ember.
Thank you, Jared. Leah Lewis, I did look up because I was curious. She is 26 years old. She was adopted from an orphanage as an infant. I just think that's fascinating and beautiful that someone adopted her, and she has done so well for herself. And there was a beautiful quote about that experience in her IMDb profile. She's known for The Half of It and also several TV series, including Nancy Drew, Station 19, and The Good Doctor. Next up, she's going to be in a TV series. I think they're remaking Matlock. Interesting. And then also Tripped Up and The Tiger's Apprentice. Then we have, I think I'm saying this right. I hope I am. Mamoudou, I think it's Mamoudou, Athie. He plays Wade Ripple. He is 34 years old, and he's a Mauritanian American actor who is best known for Jurassic World Dominion, Black Box, Underwater, and The Circle. Next up, he will be in several projects, including The Burial, and that's a movie, and Putty Sticks. And then, just in case you were wondering, because I did want to make sure I knew what I was talking about, Mauritania, if you're wondering where that is, it is in Northern Africa.
Okay, cool.
Then there are other vocal talents in this film. Some of them include Catherine O'Hara, we love her, Ronnie Del Carmen, Shyla Ami, Wendy McClendon Covey, and Mason Wertheimer.
So we'll get into what we liked about Elemental. Obviously, when you have a Pixar movie, the animation is going to be good, and that's kind of what you expect from Pixar at this point, is that the animation is solid. Although other animation studios are kind of starting to catch up to them, I would say. They had
Yep.
a big lead for a while, but now like Universal with Illumination and the Mario Brothers movie and like Despicable Me movies, the Minions movies always look very well animated. Sony, obviously, with Across the Spider-Verse and Into the Spider-Verse, their animation is very cool now. So I think Pixar has maybe lost its lead a little bit, but
Mm-hmm.
still looking very good in the animation department for this one. All the elements look very cool. They look very distinctive and unique. The city looks cool and colorful. So yeah, solid animation.
Agreed. I thought the same thing as you, Jared, because especially after we just saw the Spider-Man movie, it's hard to say that Pixar is the top dog. I really think some people are giving them a run for their money, but it was exactly what I've come to expect from Pixar. It was great animation. It was a good story. It was very cute, family friendly, and all of that.
Another like that I had is I liked that it was unknown voice actors in the lead roles.
Yes.
I thought that that allowed me to kind of connect with the story more instead of going like, oh, this is, whoever, Florence Pugh playing the role of Ember. This is just like, I was able to think of it more as just of the characters instead of the people playing the characters because I hadn't heard their voices a ton before. Where if they had gotten like name actors, I think that's sometimes hard, especially in an animated movie, to go, oh, this is supposed to be a character, but I'm hearing, The Rock because I know what The Rock's voice sounds like, or Kevin Hart, or whatever, a lot of these actors that do a lot of these animated movies. So I liked that they were unknowns, though. I thought it helped the story and helped me believe the story a little bit more.
Agreed. And that's a really good point that you touch on too, because I also noticed it wasn't voices that I recognized. And that was helpful too, because I think as much as I enjoy guessing who the voices are or knowing who the voices are and putting a face to a name, I liked that I wasn't distracted by that and that it was completely new people. So good job, Pixar, with those casting choices. Um, and then one thing I liked about it, I thought it was very creative. I didn't think that the story was as inventive and stuff as some of the other Pixar things, but I thought it was super creative to work with elements like fire and water, and wind. We saw that too. And then where they live, I thought the world they created was really believable and fascinating. And I also thought I don't think I was thinking too much into this, but that they were it was like a commentary on how we can be racist and other things about like classes and how much money people make. And if someone's not like us, we're very hesitant to talk to them, befriend them, love them, what have you. So I thought they did a really good job with that. And I was able, at least as an adult, to connect that to how we can treat people in the world that are different than us.
Yeah, I would have almost liked more of like the world stuff and kind of how it worked and how all the elements connected. And I think you're right too with the commentary there. Like the fire are basically thought of as like second class citizens and they're not good enough. And even the area that they live in is like underneath the rest of the city. And there's like
Right.
lots of like canals running through it, which is like a big point, like story point in the movie, which we won't spoil. But yeah, it was very cool, the world design and everything. So another like is the character of Wade was cool. Is voiced very well, but also it was kind of interesting. Obviously, with him being like water, he can like transform himself and sneak into small areas and things of that nature. I also thought it was very funny how his family was very emotional and he just cried all the time, which I thought was funny 'cause since he was water, he was just crying a bunch. So that was kind of a funny aspect of his character.
Me too. I thought he was so cute. I specifically wanted to touch on Wade Ripple. I thought his name was clever. His family was adorable, especially his mom. I related to the drama of Wade when I either fake cry, which I do regularly as a joke, or when I actually cry, which I cry frequently for real. And I just liked how sentimental he was, that the male character was so sentimental as opposed to the female character. And he was clever and he was funny and very considerate. He was just a thoughtful character, all the things he did for Ember. And then again, we won't ruin anything, but he was very selfless. So he was very much not concerned with his life and what happens to him. He was more concerned about the people around him that he loves.
Yeah, one of my favorite parts with his character is when he takes Ember to meet his family. I just thought that
Yes.
was like a very funny scene, and
Yes.
obviously their house is like it's just got water as a floor and everything. So yeah, but it's cool. But he also lives in like this very high rise apartment thing that's in the water area of the city, which is like much nicer than where Ember lives. So again, commenting on like the class dynamics or money dynamics, things of that nature. So
Yeah.
Ember's outfit was also really cool in the movie. She has a couple different things that she wears or they animate her in. Most of them are like sparkly, and she's wearing like dresses and stuff. But the fire is hard because like her animation is kind of moving more than Wade's
Uh
is
huh.
because the fire has to constantly be kind of flaming.
Right.
So it was harder probably to dress her than I would guess some other characters in the movie, but they did a good job.
Well, for me, Jared, I immediately thought of Taylor Swift. I don't know if Allison thought that or if anybody else who saw the movie that listens to this episode, because Taylor is known, she does a lot of the like cropped shirts and like a really cute mini skirt. And I've got her on the brain because of her concerts and everything and seeing her constantly in the news lately. But I love Taylor Swift's style, especially when she does like crop tops and stuff. But I really thought they based Ember's outfit off of Taylor Swift. Not kidding. And I liked the purple. I thought it was a nice contrast to her very fiery orange color, skin color for lack of a better word. But I thought her character was beautifully animated, but especially her outfit. I was very impressed with her costume.
Also, this is a small thing, but like the font is very cool for this movie and the title. And I don't know what
Yeah.
font they're using, but the elemental is like very blocky, and then like every letter is like a different color of one of the elements. But the graphics department at Pixar, whoever's in charge of that for these movies, did a nice job because it definitely does stand out. And obviously, all of their movies kind of have like a font thing going on. Like if you think
Uh-huh.
of like Toy Story or The Incredibles or Cars or something like that, they all kind of look a little different, but this one looked cool.
Right. I mainly wanted to comment on it because I don't have that to ever say about other movies. And I can't get over like if I could get my name, for example, if I had a cool office space or something and wanted my name, I would say, can you do it like the elemental font and with that color blocking they did? I just thought it was very inventive and visually stimulating, and I wanted to point that out because I can't think of other movies that really has happened to me recently.
Another like is that Lauv does an original song for this movie, and it's really good. The kids in my theater were bopping when that came
I
out.
loved
They
it.
were like dancing in their seats. Yeah, it was and then they play it again during the credits, so you get to hear it again. It's a catchy little tune.
It really is. I was trying to think of what the title was, but I can't find it. So anyway, but I it was it's a bop.
The song is called "Steal the Show."
Thank
So
you. Okay, steal the show. Cool.
yes. So yeah, he did a good job on that song though for the movie. And then the only other like I had was I did like the short before this movie, the Up short. It's called Carl's Date. And it's about Carl getting ready to go on a date and Doug is trying to help him out and like pump him up. I just thought Pixar hasn't done a short in a while before a movie. This one was really cute and really well done. And I thought it was good and Ed Asner is doing the voice of Carl. So I thought that was a cute short for the beginning of this.
I did too, but when that popped up, when they started playing the song and we see it's Carl, right? Is the
Yes.
older, yeah. I was like, "Damn you, Pixar!" I knew. I was like, "You're gonna make me cry." Oh, speaking of, that does lead me to my last like about the movie itself. I loved the short. I thought it was so good. I could see that being an Oscar contender because they seem to always get one in there. I Now that I just said that, I've forgotten what I was going to say that I really liked. Oh, there was one line. Sorry. Okay. There was one line I did cry a lot for about 3 minutes in this movie. There's a part, which this doesn't ruin it. The dad, who is very close to Ember, he owns a store. That's what the whole thing is based around. Is like she's been taught her whole life that she's going to take over this family business when he retires, and he's planning to retire soon. And he says, I mean, I have a feeling I understand why this hit me so hard, but it also made me think of my parents and the way they would speak to me. But he said to her, he was like, the business, because she says she doesn't want to take over the business. And he's like, the business wasn't the dream. You were the dream. And I lost it. I was fine. I was like, this movie isn't doing much to me. It was sweet, but it wasn't like emotionally moving me. And that line came out. And I think I probably had like a good 10 tears streaming down my face. And then I got it together by the credits. But I just thought that was beautiful. So I do like when a movie can move me that way and kind of do it out of nowhere.
Yeah, that was a really impactful scene. And then
Yeah.
I only had one other I thought one other part was funny. That was funny is they are at one point in the movie playing this like basketball slash hockey hybrid game.
Oh yeah.
But the two teams that are playing are called the Windbreakers and the Crop Dusters. And then like the Windbreakers slogan is like toot toot, which I thought was again just some good like Pixar humor, but like potty humor, but like elevated a little
But
bit.
cute. Yeah.
Yeah. I just thought that was fun. That got a nice chuckle out of me when it was like, okay,
Yeah.
the Windbreakers and the Crop Dusters are,
Crop dusters.
facing off. So yeah, that was funny. Okay, on to dislikes now for this movie. First main one is this movie is very predictable. It follows a very easy sequence of events. You can kind of predict where it's going in the first probably 20 minutes of the movie, and it ends up in that spot. So I just think from like a storytelling standpoint, it's not super original, and I think that's probably where the big dislikes are with the stories. It seems like we've gotten this story from Pixar before and other types of movies. Obviously, you have Inside Out, which is about emotions, not elements, but sort of the same type of deal going on there. And then like this is at its core basically a love story, and Pixar has obviously done that before, and that's been done just like so many times. But this didn't really have like a super original take on it.
Yeah, my ultimate gripe, I probably shouldn't have made this the top thing, but my ultimate dislike with this movie was how predictable it was, and it just didn't seem very creative. It was creative, like I said, the world building was creative and stuff, but as far as like an original idea or something really thought provoking, which I think Pixar can do very well, I just thought this one, I was kind of like, I feel like someone said, we have to get a movie out this year. And so they said, well, let's do Elemental. Not at all discounting all the work that goes into the animation, the editing, everything like that. But I'm just saying, I feel like this wasn't their best work by a long shot.
Yeah, I don't think this is as good as Turning Red or Soul. If you look at
Soul,
like the recent
loved
ones,
Soul.
yeah,
And
both of
Soul
those are
was
better.
really thought provoking. And Soul
Hmm.
is about death. I mean, and our mortality. And that is thought provoking for any age.
Hmm. Yeah. Another dislike that I had is I thought the marketing for this movie was very misleading. The
Mm,
trailers and stuff didn't really hint at the love story at all. It made it seem like it was going to
no.
be more of a movie about the elements and them living in this world and them kind of working together. And there is some of that in the movie, but it's more of a romance and like family dynamics. And the trailers really didn't focus on that at all. So I will say if you were going in expecting like a almost more of a sciency type movie, it's not that at all. It's it's basically just a romantic comedy. So
Couldn't agree more, Jared. I think you hit the nail on the head. And I definitely agree with you, but I didn't think about it until you just said it that way. But I had no idea and was surprised when this turned out to be a love story because they had marketed it so differently. So that is irritating to me. I think the only other gripe I really had, I felt I was confused by what Ember specifically because she's fire, that element of fire, what she could and couldn't touch. I felt like it wasn't consistent. And then there was, at least for me, I never caught like obviously there's kisses and hand holding and stuff in this and hugging with fire and water. And I might have missed it, but I was awake during the whole thing. So, but I never figured out how they were able to do those things. I don't know if they were just like love magically overcame this. But I thought there was specifically one scene where I know she was holding a paper of some sort. I think it was that pamphlet that's like something like you're going to lose your job or your family's business is going to close or something. And it didn't catch on fire and she was holding it. And I thought, now why is that catching on fire? And I'm sure a 6-year-old's probably not going to care or notice that. But to me, I thought, well, that's pretty obvious that that should be catching on fire or that she'd have to like set it on the ground and read it while it's on the ground. And I just felt like overall it wasn't consistent with what she could or couldn't touch and why things were affected or not affected by her being fire.
Yeah, I thought that was odd too. I'm surprised that didn't come up when they like did test screenings or like when they were watching it as a company. Like somebody didn't say, hey, like there's another part, like she rides a motorcycle throughout a lot of the movie. That's obviously like metal, but then there's another part where she like basically burns her way through a metal gate. So again, I didn't understand that. And then there's like this whole storyline about elements not mixing, but yet there's a lot of things in this world where like objects where the elements would have like mixed together. So that didn't really make sense either. Yeah. So because there's like stone and there's like brick and all, to make bricks you have to have fire. So I didn't really understand that either. So
yeah, there were things that were really clever with the elements, but there was a lot that I think a lot of obvious things they missed where, like you said, they wouldn't mix or the elements would have affected things and there was just no effect.
Yeah, also she's like walking on the ground, but the ground's not burning. Like when she walks in grass and stuff, that's another like thing. And that's just a couple of things like that we just thought of really quickly. I mean, there's probably way more in the whole movie, but it seems like they just kind of ignored some of that and just were like, no, it just is what it is. And then like you said, they touch and they Wade and Ember touch, hold hands and kiss at the end of the movie, and like both of them are fine. So that was weird too.
Yeah, agreed.
Cool. Well, I think that's all our thoughts on Elemental. So we'll go ahead and give our scores now. I think it's my turn to go first. So.
Let's go with that because I couldn't remember. So go right ahead.
I am going to give this one a 75 out of 100.
Okay.
Kind of right there with the critics on Rotten Tomatoes. I did have it. I was thinking like somewhere in the 80s before we started talking about it, but as we talked about it, I bumped it down a little bit because some of those issues stood out a little more in the dislikes. So 75 out of 100. It's a solid movie. I don't know if you need to go see it in the theaters. It's probably fine to wait till Disney Plus drops this one and watch it at home. And I think that Pixar has even said they think that maybe has hurt the box office a little bit because their last couple movies have just come straight to Disney Plus, like Turning Red and Soul and some other things as well. So, but yeah, 75 out of 100 for me. Solid, but not one of the best Pixar movies.
I'm going to go with 68. I didn't think it was terrible, but the things that bothered me way more than the things I liked. And again, I feel like when you're so good at something like Pixar is with animation and storylines and stuff like that, if it falls flat, I think that makes a worse impression on me because the expectations are already so high. And I thought this was just a mid-tier Pixar movie. It was cute. I would not have paid to go see it in theaters if we weren't doing it for the podcast. I don't know that I'd watch it again. And there were things that were adorable about it. Yeah. But I can get that from a lot of Pixar movies that are done better.
I would agree. So you can follow the show on social media at Podcast Silver on Twitter and Instagram. Search the Silver Screen Podcast on Facebook and find us there. And find our Letterboxd profiles in the show description. You can click there and follow us on Letterboxd. Also be sure to rate and review the show as well. I saw we got a couple of star ratings on Spotify since the last time I had checked. So
what?
2 people rated us 5 stars on Spotify. So thank you very much for doing that.
Thank you so much. That's awesome.
Yeah. So
I didn't even realize.
You can rate there. You can rate on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. So thank you very much for doing that. And then next week we are going to be talking about Asteroid City. Half of Hollywood is in this movie. It's the new one from Wes Anderson. Everybody, I think, basically has a cameo role except for Jason Schwartzman and Scarlett Johansson, I believe. I think they're the 2 main characters. But Tom Hanks is in this, Steve Carell, Bryan Cranston, Maya Hawke, Margot Robbie, Bill Murray. So, yeah, tons and tons of people in Asteroid City, the new Wes Anderson movie. So we'll be talking about that next week on the show.
Until next time, we'd like to thank the Academy.